A new future demands a new stage set, so I've been working away, putting in place this awesome new stage set. Blew out the walls, made it a little bit bigger, expanded the lights. Look, I used to spend some time on some great, big, glorious stages, and they're gone, so I got to create my own reality right here, right now for COVID-19. And that's the key message for you right now, is you need to create your own reality, because we're going to be in this unique period of space for quite some time. Before COVID-19 hit, I spent a lot of time with a lot of organizations talking about the transformative trends which were really shaping our world. And what I did with my audiences was I put in perspective, here's the reality of the trends which are going to unfold over a 10-year time span. And this is a really good way to think about the future. Number one, if you think about the world of energy, we are transitioning from a world in which we generate energy from coal and oil and traditional old school energy infrastructure to a world that is based on carbon, no longer based on carbon, but based on renewables, based on microgrids, based on a lot of smart technology. That is a key trend which is going forward, and it has a massive impact in terms of what we are doing in the utility and energy sector. We're transitioning to a world of what we might call smart grids, with a lot of battery storage technology, where, look, your electric vehicle might actually become, and likely will become, a part of the energy grid. You think about the future, we're going to look back 10 years from now and realize we were in a world in which we used to actually drive cars, and then we found ourselves in a world in which the vehicles drove themselves. The cars became intelligent, they became smart, they became connected, they became something that were fully autonomous. We are in the midst of that massive transformation. It's occurring right now. You think about the world of retail. We were once in a world where we would go out and get the products that we need. We now increasingly find ourselves in a world in which the products come to us via drone and other delivery technologies. That's a reality that we are going to wake up in one day in the future. In the world of manufacturing, the world of manufacturing used to be a world in which organizations would manufacture millions of products that were all the same, mass manufacturing. But now, with the arrival of 3D printing, additive manufacturing, all these new technologies and capabilities, we're entering a world of mass customization, where we can increasingly manufacture products for an audience of one. You think about the world of construction. It too is changing. It used to be that we would take all the materials that we needed to construct something on a site to the site, but increasingly fabrication, manufacturing, construction is occurring in factories for final assembly on site. These are the transformative trends which are defining our future. When it comes to the world of healthcare, we are witnessing a similar transformative trend, where it used to be we fixed you after you were sick, but increasingly, because of genomic medicine and all of the connectivity occurring in the world of healthcare, increasingly we know what it is likely you are going to become sick with, and we re-architect the delivery of healthcare resources based upon that knowledge. Look, when I went on stage, I always used a phrase to try to open up the minds of the folks in the audience. We are in a situation in which companies that do not yet exist will build products not yet conceived, using materials not yet invented, with methodologies not yet in existence. That is a reality going forward, and that's what you need to align yourself to. Well, that's what I was talking about pre-COVID. That's what I was working to put in the minds of leadership executives around the world on stage, and then COVID-19 hit and everything changed. And no doubt, we have seen some remarkable change over the last many months as the world went into lockdown, as industries scrambled to survive, as organizations worked at crisis level mode to figure out what do they do. And this is transformative. This has changed everything. Everything about our future is going to be fundamentally different. Everything that we know from the past is different going forward in the future. But is it? When the global crisis began, I began thinking, obviously, what am I going to advise my clients in terms of what comes next in the future? The big issue quickly became one of how has COVID-19 and how has the global pandemic changed the future? How has the future changed as a result? So I spent a lot of time thinking from early February, once it became evident where we were headed with this thing, in terms of what that change might mean. And I had a fascinating circumstance where I was brought on to a national news show early in March with a group of people who were talking about the reality of what was occurring as they worked to reinvent themselves for the reality of their future. They filmed me in my virtual home broadcast studio, but they filmed a variety of individuals who were also reinventing at a furious pace. What I learned from that show and what I witnessed at the issue of how quickly organizations were reinventing themselves was that speed became everything. In that TV broadcast, they featured a farmer, and it was a remarkable clip because what it captured was his mindset in the early days of the pandemic. He realized that his opportunity, by which he sold a lot of product via a local farmer's market, was quickly going to disappear. That the lockdown meant that he had to innovate, change, and adapt at a furious pace to align to a new reality. What did he do? He quickly began working to set up an e-commerce site to make his farmer's market go virtual and provide the ability for local farmers in his region to sell their products in that way. And just think about what you've witnessed. Think about how quickly the entire global gym industry and fitness industry has transitioned to a world of online workouts. Think about what you have witnessed with retail, with grocers, and every single aspect of retail as they have quickly worked to provide for curbside pickup, for e-commerce, for deliveries. They've had to reinvent and innovate fast because they really had no choice but to do that. The world of manufacturing, we are seeing accelerating change in terms of adoption of robotic technology, technologies that allow us to put in place a social distancing infrastructure within the factory. The world of agriculture, we're seeing increased use of drones and other technology to manage the farm, again, driven by the need for social distancing and new forms of interaction. We're seeing the acceleration of robotic technology on farms. Everywhere you look, you are seeing intense efforts to reinvent, innovate, and do things in a different way. Look, to a degree, as a speaker, I'm a bit of an entertainer. I used to fly around the world and get on stage. And what we've witnessed with rock bands such as Metallica, they've had to reinvent, like every other entertainer in the world, to figure out a new way of getting out to their audience. Through this entire process, we have witnessed entire industries, entire communities, entire groups of people figuring out what they need to do to align to a new reality that is unlike anything they've ever known before. And you know who was one of the groups who innovated faster than any other? Was organized religion, churches. They suddenly found a need in which parishioners, in which members of their congregation could not come to the church. And so I actually found a community online where there were churches and religious people reinventing themselves for virtual delivery. And this particular little clip is fascinating because it's showing one particular church building an outdoors church facility that would provide for social distancing, a time-lapse video of what they went through. All of these issues led to my rules on what happened and how the future has changed as a result of COVID-19. Number one, we squeezed 10 years of change into a period of 6 months. And what happened with a lot of the trends which I was talking about in the past, whether in the world of retail, whether in the world of healthcare, whether in the world of manufacturing, a lot of those major trends actually sped up because of necessity. What happened here was that organizations and people learned something new about speed. A lot of organizations talked about the need for agility, for flexibility, for the ability to move fast, but those quickly became a necessity. It was no longer an option. You had to move fast in order to survive. What that meant was that business models shifted faster than ever before. We witnessed a staggering, blinding pace of change in terms of how quickly organizations were innovating to deal with their reality. What happened here was a new corporate attitude emerged. There was an attitude of, you can no longer give the excuse of it can't be done. That was shattered by the absolute necessity of getting it done. And if you really think about what happened, decision-making paralysis, the organizational sclerosis, which held back a lot of organizations from pursuing transformative trends, literally disappeared because you had no choice. What happened with this is that the slow structure which existed in a lot of organizations was put under a microscope and truly blown up because the old barriers to new ideas disappeared. Suddenly, the inconceivable became conceivable. The crazy idea suddenly became routine. You no longer had individuals saying, you can't do that because we've always done it this way. Instead, the rallying cry became, what do we do next to deal with the reality of what is occurring? And get it done became the rallying cry. These are 10 powerful lessons which I think are going to forever change our approach to the future and need to come into our strategic planning process. Because truly, we have become a different type of organization. Look, every single good list of 10 items has to go to 11. Spinal Tap, my favorite movie, if you don't know it, the amplifier that goes to 11. And the 11th rule is this: the rallying cry became, how do we sustain this momentum? We have learned to move so quickly. What do we do to ensure that we can keep that momentum going forward? Because it has proven to be something extremely powerful. There's a little bit of a glitch in terms of the scene setup. That's the hazard of going live. It was working before I went live and now has disappeared. So I'll fix that in post. The key issue is this. What do we do? Look at that, I'm even on the wrong space on the floor. What do we do to ensure that we can align ourselves to this dramatic new future and sustain the abilities of the lessons that we've learned by virtue of entering a world in which speed is everything? Futurist Jim Carroll, have a good one. And that's a wrap.